everyone, welcome to PeaceTalks. This is Molly.
I'm Donté.
And today we're going to talk to y'all a little bit about consent. What is it? What does it mean? And how do we go about asking for consent and practicing consent responsibly in all kinds of different situations, not just romantic ones. So, these days I don't get out of the house much. I don't know about you, Donté, but even though we're in phase 2 with all the COVID stuff going on, I'm still spending a lot of time chilling at home, watching movies, and stuff like that. You've been watching a lot of movies?
I've been watching a lot of Netflix and Hulu, a little Disney Plus too.
Yeah? You watching any romcoms? Don't lie.
Not quite, but I'm familiar with a lot.
You're familiar with them?
I'm familiar with
Okay. So I've been kind of nostalgic lately, so I've been kind of going back and watching like old rom-coms that I used to like. Because, you know, when we're stressed, sometimes we want to look at stuff, old things that seem familiar, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would, because in a lot of these movies, you know, people go about showing affection or like hugging, kissing, and what have you in these movies without having a conversation about consent. And, you know, being older and doing what I do for a living, which is, you know, talking to folks about making sure you have permission before you even touch somebody. Watching that on film is kind of
disturbing.
A little bit disturbing, kind of shocking. I forgot that was how those things went in those movies. And yeah, it's been making me think a lot about where people get their ideas about how relationships are supposed to be. How relationships are supposed to go. And a lot of us learned from movies. Like I know I did watching those movies, and I learned some behaviors that weren't necessarily healthy or respectful of other people's boundaries.
I think with the creation of movies, it's literally the thoughts of someone's head coming out to the big picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, essentially they can be someone's biggest and greatest fantasies that they've always wished to come true. Putting it out on the big screen, you know, it's entertainment for us. Gives us an opportunity not to, you know, to think about what's going on around us. It allows us to laugh. It allows us to cry. It puts us in a space to feel the love and connection between two individual people or more. But at the same time, we don't really pay attention to some of the behaviors are unhealthy, and they can be very toxic, you know.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of like rom-coms, there's some drama, but sometimes things are easier than they are in real life. Like, you know, going in for a hug or going in for a kiss. I think sometimes we want to just, you know, when we're watching movies, just be able to watch that happen without thinking about all the stress of actually having that conversation. Because we wanna chill, we wanna relax. But guess what? We don't get that in real life because we're dealing with another human being who has a different set of boundaries than we do. And they might kind of see their life, you know, as their own movie. Like I might see my life as a movie about me, right? But we might have totally different scripts that we're following. And we have to be really careful about respecting people's boundaries and asking for consent before touching someone. Like movies will show a lot of the like physical affection because that's part of the storytelling. Movies don't show all the conversations that should go on before that happens. Like we're not trying to say that people in their relationships can't be spontaneous sometimes, but you have to have conversations about what's okay and what's not okay to do with a partner physically or emotionally, right? And yeah, movies are made to make money, and sometimes the paying public wants to see a lot of action and not a lot of conversation leading up to things.
And essentially they're pressed for time, you know? They want to get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
They don't want to see all that talking and leading up and asking questions. We're pressed for time. They have an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to all the good stuff, the action, the romance, and all that good stuff. So, you know, yeah, I agree with you there. They're looking for what's going to get the big bucks, what's going to draw the most crowd of people, what's going to capture everybody's attention and what have you. But in actuality, in real life, things do not work like that. You know, people are, like you said, they could be on different pages, they can be on different scripts. So it's important for us to communicate those boundaries and be able to have an open discussion with one another in what we want and what we don't want, how we want to be treated and how we don't. And movies are perfect examples as to how we fail as a society with acknowledging those things.
And when we're talking about consent too, we're not just talking about the physical stuff. Like, I think movies are a great example of ways that we learn behaviors that aren't entirely healthy and aren't entirely respectful of other people. But also, I think, everything is really hard with the pandemic right now and keeping everyone healthy and protecting other people's health. But it's also really an opportunity to think about how we practice consent in our everyday lives, either emotionally or physically. For example, I know a lot of people are stressed right now, so I'm starting to ask for consent for emotional things. Like, hey, do you have the brain space to talk about something upsetting I saw on the news today? What about physical stuff? Have you had to renegotiate some physical boundaries with people, in everyday ways?
Absolutely. Like, I go to the grocery store now, if I see somebody who I haven't seen in a while, my natural instinct is to come up and stick my hand out for a handshake without asking, or someone who's close to me reach in for a hug, quite naturally. But now it's like I have to take a step back and think about, wait, do I really want to touch this person? Am I putting myself at risk? Am I putting them at risk by touching them, by shaking their hand? So it just creates an opportunity for us to be open and asking, hey, is it okay for me to give you a handshake? And can I give you a hug? Are you comfortable with that? And like I said, we walk around with masks on our faces, so we really can't read facial expressions either. So it leaves us up to mainly being vocal about our comfort zones and our boundaries. And so I feel like COVID has definitely brought that to everyone's attention. It's not healthy for us to continue to assume things about people.
And you and I, for those of you watching at home, you can't see it, but Donté and I have negotiated before starting PeaceTalks how far apart we're gonna sit so that we can talk to y'all without having to wear a mask, right? So boundaries are shifting constantly, even in this office, even with my friends, I have to kind of renegotiate boundaries every week. For example, I have someone I garden with, and we're gardening over at their place, and every week I check in and just say, hey, these are the places I've gone this week, this is how crowded they were, do you want me to mask up before I come in to wash my hands? Do you want me to wear a mask when I'm inside the house? How do you feel about that? So I'm developing these habits to constantly check in with people that I already have a relationship with and people that I've already have boundaries with, but they're constantly changing. I mean, that's really what we're talking about, permission for doing anything to someone that could impact them in any way, right? So we talk about it a lot with romantic relationships and being physically intimate, but it's also emotional, and it's also, again, with COVID, just letting people know, what risk you might pose to them, and ask them what kind of decision they'd like to take. But also just making sure that they know that it's okay if they say, hey, I do want you to wear a mask. I'm not going to get upset or offended. I can take that well. Or somebody says, hey, don't come over this week. We think we might have been exposed. So it's also about just kind of being patient and being ready to receive some disappointing news, maybe, and that's how we keep each other safe, literally and figuratively, really.
It makes everything so much easier.
And it's gotten easier to have these conversations. It used to be really tense. I went to the grocery store and I forgot my mask. I was a terrible person for doing that. And now it's just kind of hey man, do you want me to stay away for a couple weeks? Cause I went to this thing and sorry, but I want to let you know, and I know you're not going to get mad. I'm just telling you so you can make a decision, and whatever you decide is fine. So it's about building up those skills to ask and to renegotiate, but also being ready to receive a no, like what we've talked about before, receiving no, or receiving don't come over for a few weeks.
Yeah.
But things are hard now. Right? But we wanted to talk to you all today about consent, to also just tell you that if you're talking to people about how to behave during this pandemic, you're also already practicing consent. And we say practicing because you are practicing, and it's a constant practice, it's a constant habit. We'll never be perfect, but we have to keep practicing. We have to keep trying, and we always have to strive for getting to 100% certainty that whatever we're doing, whether we're hugging someone or going in their house without a mask on or what have you, that they're okay, they're 100% okay with us doing that, and that we're looking out for each other and each other's well-being.
Yeah.
So I think that's really it.
That's it. That's all we have for you guys today. Please, if you need us, if you need to contact us at any time, if anyone needs to talk with us, please call our hotline, which is 540-639-1123. In the event that you don't want to talk verbally, you can also use our chat line, which is available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thanks, you guys. See you soon.
And don't forget, no means no. The victim is never at fault, and you have the right to be safe. And my unofficial fourth phrase is, rom-coms aren't real. Have a good week, y'all.